Hey guys, welcome back. Today's episode is second in a two-part series with BiOptimizers. Only the first episode was with Wade Lightheart, who is the president of BiOptimizers, and today's episode is with Matt Gallant or Gallant. I can't remember how he told me to pronounce it, but whatever. It's Matt Gallant, who is the chief executive officer. He's the CEO of BiOptimizers. Matt has a bachelor's degree in kinesiology. He's been a strength and conditioning coach for multiple pro athletes. He's a self-defense instructor, and he has over 10 years experience formulating supplements. And like Wade, Matt's roots lie in bodybuilding. That's where these guys kind of met. That's how they kind of got inspired and got set upon this path that they're on, where they've created this amazing company that makes spectacular supplements. And we're going to talk about a lot of them today. But at the end of this podcast, Matt mentioned to me, my God, I don't think I've ever talked about this many different things in one podcast before. So we definitely go over some of the real anchor products of BiOptimizers, which, if you don't know, they have one of the best formulas of magnesium that I've seen out there. We talk about why there's so many different forms of magnesium in that formula, what they do, why they're important. And we also talk about how BiOptimizers formulates their supplements. We talk about the lab in Bosnia with a PhD who's sitting there kind of experimenting with these formulas and optimizing them and changing them and tweaking them all the time. And this goes from everything from their magnesium to their digestive enzymes, which I've been using for a while and have been a real game changer for me. I've been using Masszymes, been using the P3OM, which is this proteolytic probiotic. Like I've really, I often think, enzymes are enzymes, but I would say that their formulas are different. They work differently. They feel different. I'm pretty impressed with the products, and I've now got a lot of my clients using them as well. But more than this, we also talk a lot about, and this is more in the back, I'm going to say the back third of the podcast. We get into the new venture that BiOptimizers has gotten into. If you haven't heard yet, they've now moved into the nootropic space, and not just any nootropics. They've come into personalized nootropics. And I myself got my very first box of my personalized stack, focused ferocity. That's their tagline this week. Today is day 2. So today I got to try this Apex supplement, which has been amazing, very clear, very focused. Yesterday's was this Nectar X, which number one tasted amazing. It's a powder you mix into water, but more importantly, it was just such a smooth ride. And although I've been working late lately, and I have found that I'm really tired and exhausted by the end of my day, which sometimes ends as late as 9. I found yesterday at 9 o'clock, I tore myself away from my computer. It's not that I was wired or overstimulated. It's just that I just seem to have this very steady energy through the day. So it was really interesting. Just on day 2, there's this whole program that unfolds with Nootopia, that you get this guide. Like on day 1, you try the what was I just calling it? Day 2 is Apex. Day 1 is Nectar X. Day 3, there'll be something else that I'll try. And then eventually they have you starting to stack and combine stuff to find the formulas that work best for you. And then you can get back to them and talk about what worked well, what didn't. There's an app, it's very robust. So, and all of these supplements are put together, they're hand capped, they're put together by hand. So they have limited ability right now as they're staffing up. So if you go to the website and you find it, because you want to try out a stack for yourself, and you find that they've run out of space right now, then you'll be able to, I'm sure they've got a wait list of some kind, and they'll get back to you as soon as they've increased their capacity and can handle more people. So if you want to check out the products we talk about that are made by BiOptimizers, so this is all the digestive stuff, including the Magnesium Breakthrough, you'll go to bioptimizers.com and you can use promo code longevity10 to get 10% off your product. And if you want to check out this personalized nootropic business, which like I said, I'm really excited about it. I think it's pretty cool. You'll want to go to nootopia.com/VIP. And again, longevity10 will get you 10% off. So that's it. So as always, folks. Everything we talk about in this podcast is for information purposes only. There's a lot of good information, but you know that you always want to make sure that this is right for you. Consult with your health practitioner, your physician, before you start anything else. And I will say that in the nootropics world, especially if you're on any kind of medication like SSRIs or whatever the case may be, you're going to want to check for any kind of interactions with that kind of stuff. So if you enjoy this podcast, please make sure that you share it out with your network, with your friends, with your family, because the more the word gets out there, the more listeners we have, the more we reach people, and the easier it is for me to get amazing guests for you. And of course, make sure that you leave us a review, because those reviews is what helps the podcast rank, and the ranking, again, is what helps us get out there. And what else? If you're looking to get in touch with me, you can find me through my website, which is natnidham.com. You can find me on Facebook in the the Optimizing Superhuman Performance group. Sorry, getting confused with my guest here. If you're not a Facebook person, you could go to MeWe in the Superhuman Performance Facebook group. And of course, on Instagram, at Nathalie Nidham, in Clubhouse, at Nathalie Nidham, kind of boring, Twitter, at Nathalie Nidham. So that's it. That's how you can find me. Enjoy the episode. It's chock full of stuff, of information. Like I said, it's a winding conversation, but I think you'll like it. And let me know what you think. Leave me the comments. Bye. Welcome to the show, Matt Gallant or Gallant?
Gallant. Yeah, Gallant. I mean, I think they both work, but I do prefer the sound of Gallant.
I do too. I think it's, and it works with the double L. Mm-hmm. And besides, because I speak English as a second language, I generally apply my own pronunciation to most things. So it works for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. English, my second language as well. I was born in New Brunswick in Acadian French, which is a dialect community. So.
Est-ce que tu parles toujours français?
Je parle français, ouais.
Nice.
Went to French. I mean, French in school, French university, but the French that they speak in New Brunswick, I mean, most people from Quebec can't even understand it. So
right, and I speak French, like France French. So
reason, yeah.
It's an adjustment for me, even on the Quebec side French. So. But it's all good. It's all it all keeps our brains more flexible, right?
I agree.
So Matt, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here.
That's great to be here.
And I've listened to some of your podcasts and read your stuff and used your stuff, and super excited to talk about all the things we're going to talk about today. So you're the other half of the BiOptimizers brand. And I was told that if I wanted to talk magnesium, you're the guy I need to talk to. So maybe because your first name starts with an M-A, I don't know. Oh, actually, and your initials MG, which is the symbol for magnesium on the periodic table, right? So
there you go.
Is that
great pattern recognition? Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, Matt, let's talk about first how you came to be where you are today, because that's kind of like where I like to start my podcast. I always love to get the backstory on people. You are Canadian, not living here anymore, which these days I would say is a pretty good thing. So tell us.
Yeah, born in New Brunswick. My dad bought me a weight set when I was 12, and just really got bitten by the bodybuilding bug when I was 15. Got obsessed for 3 years, started training twice a day, started, doing diets like the anabolic diet, which was created by another Canadian, Mauro Di Pasquale, which was a cyclical keto diet. Did that for 3 years, competed once, didn't like dieting. So I was okay, I'm done.
Shockingly.
It really sucks I lost 64 pounds in 14 weeks, which was a huge mistake.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But it was rough. Then I got to fighting, hand-to-hand combat, MMA, trained that for 7 years with a Navy SEAL, and got obsessed with that. And I was training people. I started training people when I was 19, helped my best friend lose 191 pounds in 18 months. That was a huge turning point. That's when I knew, okay, I wanted to do this for a career, because I saw firsthand him go from 391 pound virgin to 200 pounds and married a couple years later. And it
Wow.
was awesome to just see not just the physical transformation, but the psychic, the emotions, just like he was just a new human being. And yeah, just playing a small part of that was awesome. So I went to University of Moncton, got my degree in kinesiology, science of physical activity. And all at the same time, I'm training people. I was working like 80 hours in the gym as a trainer at my busiest, and I was studying marketing, and I knew that I wanted to build, things where I could help more people. So became a trainer, sold that business, moved to met Wade, moved to Vancouver. Wade hooked me up with World's Gym and became one of the busiest trainers in Vancouver. And then started building businesses online, and that was it. So Wade was winning national championships as a vegetarian natural bodybuilder, which was super unusual.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, let's package that. And that was the beginning of our business. Our first product, most people have never heard of it. It was called Freaky Big Naturally. It was a natural bodybuilding training program. And this is in 2004. And it was an instant success. Then about a year later, we released Masszymes, which, we continually improve that formula, but that was a grand slam right out of the gate. I mean, we had guys using 1,500 capsules a month because, bodybuilders eat so much food that it becomes a limiting factor. And that's really where we designed that product. And anyway, it's been a long journey. And then 6 years ago, yeah, go ahead.
Time out. Explain to me the Masszymes and the massive food, because Masszymes, from my understanding, is a proteolytic enzyme formula, which is it sort of?
Well, that's the primary enzyme blend, but there's 17 enzymes. So you can use it for almost any food.
Okay. And so the bodybuilders basically were using it to be able to digest and therefore absorb and assimilate all of this food that they were eating so that they could build with it and not just have it clog up the system, as it were.
100% plus, I have friends that have been some of the top bodybuilders in the world, like top 5. And he told me like the most challenging thing isn't the workouts. It's actually eating the amount of food that we need to eat. So, most people, if you're eating 4,000 calories of pizza, it's pretty easy. But when you have to eat 4,000 or 5,000 calories of clean food, of healthy food, it's really hard.
Oh yeah.
That's a lot of food. And your digestive system, you're not eating, you're not digesting properly. You're feeling full all the time. You don't feel good. You don't want to eat. And it just becomes as difficult as dieting. Which I know sounds weird unless you've experienced.
No, it's the flip side of it for sure.
Yeah, you're ghrelin and just drops to the floor and you just don't want to eat. So the enzymes help with that. And you just don't have that full cement-like feeling in your stomach 24/7 if you eat enough. Now you need to increase the dose. And that's a piece of advice I have for everyone, is that with a lot of things, you got to figure out, like, there's minimal effective dose, which is what you'll find on labels most of the time.
Yeah.
Why? It's for legal reasons.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a practitioner and you help a lot of people, sometimes you need to titrate up the dose to get people to that magic zone where the product is doing its full potential, or it's doing all the magic it can. And Masszymes is one of those products. Here's a unique thing too about enzymes. We don't know where the ceiling is. I mean, with most things, there's an LD50, which means it would kill 50% of the population if they took that dose. And that's true for a lot of minerals and enzymes, minerals and vitamins and things like that. But with enzymes, our mentor, Michael O'Brien, he said he went to 1,000 a day and had no issues. I mean, I've taken 100 in a shot.
Come on.
We just did that last week. When filming, we Wade and I down 120 caps each in one shot, and you just feel good. It's really unique. Your body just seems to absorb all the enzymes you give it. Probiotics are similar as well. I don't know where the dosage is in terms of creating health problems, but that's the story of Masszymes.
Oh, no, okay, wait, no. So let's just dig into that a tiny bit, and then hold your spot on that other train of thought you were following before I rudely interrupted you. So in terms of finding your effective dose on Masszymes, even though we weren't going to talk about Masszymes today, but we're here and it came up. So what would your suggestion be to people? Because with like, for example, with betaine HCl, we tell people keep increasing your dose until you feel a bit of heat or warmth.
Mhm.
And now you back down from that dose. With Masszymes, I get the sense that it doesn't quite work that way. If you can down 120 capsules, I don't care who you are, if you even tried to go with HCl, you would have some serious problems on your hands.
Yeah.
So with Masszymes, what's the guideline you would give a person who's sitting going, okay, how do I find that dose?
Yeah, for most people, one capsule for every 300 calories is enough. But when you're dealing with maximizing performance or aesthetics, so again, bodybuilders, every percentage matters, or with athletes. And that's another thing too with Masszymes, it'll cut down a recovery time from injuries by 50%. And if you look at the research with karate athletes, boxers, black eyes, pretty much any kind of blunt trauma injury, it'll cut down the recovery time by 50% if taken on an empty stomach. So there's a lot of ways.
That's the proteolytic piece.
Correct.
Okay.
So it's reducing inflammation. And that's another way in general you can use Masszymes, is to improve the effectiveness of your fast, whether you're doing an intermittent fast, which means in the morning you could wake up, take 10 capsules, or if you're doing a longer fast, take 10, 15, 20 capsules a day for multiple days. It will increase the effectiveness of the fasting for sure. We've done it many times, and there's some doctors that have some cancer protocols using massive amounts of proteolytic enzymes in conjunction with fasting. So
there used to be like the first proteolytic enzymes I was introduced to when I was back in the day when I was in nutritionist school, as I call it, was this German brand. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, I think so.
BiOptimizers. And they became harder to find. And I actually found that those ones really did a number on my stomach if I tried taking them on an empty stomach. And so I could never do that. So I never dared to try it with the Masszymes, but I'm starting to get the sense that maybe your formula is a bit different.
Yeah, it is different. The one issue that if people don't take enzymes is ulcers. So if people have ulcers and they take enzymes, they will get that burning. It'll be very painful.
Yeah.
So one note too about our company. So about a year and a half ago, we opened up a research lab in Bosnia.
Nice.
Why Bosnia? It's a long story, but we have a partnership with the Birch University, and we have just the dream PhD that's literally running nonstop tests with her students. And her PhD is in biofilm, and her parents are biologists. And, I don't know where we'd even look to find someone like this in North America, but we are constantly running tests on all our probiotics, on all of our enzymes to actually multiply the effectiveness. And I think that's one thing that makes us unique. Like, I'm obsessed with data and research and testing with the intent of innovating, right? It's not just doing tests for the sake of tests, but how can we make this better? And we got some really exciting breakthroughs happening on the enzymes. So
I love it. Okay. So Masszymes, lots of different. So you were talking about Masszymes and going to the next phase of your journey. So Masszymes was one of your first products and became a hallmark.
Yeah. And then we had one more big product that's coming back actually in June, which is Protein Breakthrough. So the next product we release was organic hemp protein. Now this is in 2005, 2006. So plant-based was not in the conversation, wasn't a narrative. And again, we were just, I think, one of the first guys. We weren't the first guys selling hemp, but we sold a lot of it online. But it tasted like dirt, smelled like a barn. So it was just pure hemp.
Appealing.
It was pure hemp. There was no sweetener, no nothing. And then we continued to evolve that product, and now it's a full meal replacement with a variety of proteins and an awesome sweetener blend. No gums. It's organic. It's epic. So that's coming out. But we released that, and then we focused and rebranded in 2014 to BiOptimizers. So at that point, Wade and I's passion for bodybuilding, I mean, that's it was great when we were teenagers. It was a great dream. But now we're really focused on health and longevity, like yourself. Like, to me, what I do now, what people do in their 40s, 50s is really what's going to determine, and it's never too late, right? I mean, you can get started at 80, but I know that what I'm doing today is going to affect my quality of life and longevity. So really focused on that. And we decided to focus on digestive health. We asked ourselves one question, which was, what's the one thing we think we do better than anyone else? And the answer was right away, digestion. So since that time, we've built a full suite of digestive solutions, including different types of enzymes. So we got Capex for keto, Gluten Guardian, which is more effective than Masszymes for gluten and dairy. Again, that's one of the things we've tested in the lab. We have different kinds of probiotics, including like a proteolytic probiotic, which is P3OM. It's really special. Undefeated against food poisoning, as far as we know. And that's one of the things we tested in the lab. So it kills E. coli. So what we do in the lab, we try to kill the probiotics by making them basically encounter other bacteria, including a lot of bad guys. And we knew just from experience, including my own, that if you have food poisoning, if you take 10 capsules of P3OM right away, and then you might vomit one more time, 15 minutes, and take another 10, it's over. Really? And I'm talking about like you're on the floor and you're going to have the diarrhea and vomiting for 36 hours kind of bug, gone in 30. It's never lost, which is awesome.
Wow. What about traveler's diarrhea? Like people who travel, like you would want to have this with your Saccharomyces boulardii in your pocket at all times, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. And taking it with each meal, right? So with, even when you're drinking water, it'll really help. Now, we have a new product that released a couple years ago that's effective against gram-positive bacteria, which are different. Like pneumonia is a gram-positive bacteria. They're much more difficult to kill.
Yeah.
Leaky gut guardian kills the majority of gram-positive bacteria that we tested against. Plus, and this is a whole conversation we can get into, it's a mind-blowing biofilm builder. We actually bought a machine where we can measure biofilm. Now, most probiotics do not build biofilm, and that's something that isn't really talked about. I remember learning about transient and colonizing strains a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, again, our PhD, that's her PhD. That was her thesis. So we've been able to create, it's not just the probiotics, it's the entire environment that it's in. And it's things that you can do to the probiotics that will actually kickstart them into self-defense mode. And one of the ways that they defend themselves is by creating biofilm.
Okay, so interrupting again, sorry. Yeah. So that's fascinating to me because most of the conversation around biofilms is how to break them, right? Because people have bacteria in their bodies that protect themselves with biofilms so that you can't get at them. And now you're sitting here telling me that you actually want biofilm, but you're using it to protect the probiotic, the good bacteria that you want. And do they then exist in the biofilm, or does that biofilm eventually get broken down when they get to the right place, or they live within the biofilm and that's the benefit to you?
Well, the issue is, and you're right, they live, they colonize, they're part of the biofilm, right?
Yeah.
The biofilm is a bunch of polysaccharides that they're building as a way to defend themselves and protect themselves. So the question is, though, what are the strains that are part of that biofilm? Mm-hmm. Now, what you want to do is kill the bad bacteria, and we can talk about how to do that. And P3OM does that, and Leaky Gut Guardian does that.
Yeah.
And then you want to build biofilm with good bacteria. And the ones we use in Leaky Gut Guardian are immune boosting probiotics. That's what we focused on in that blend.
Okay.
And then with Cognibiotics, these are called psychobiotics. Doesn't mean they're psychotic. It means that they're producing neurochemicals that help us perform at our best. Like, for example, 95% of serotonin is produced in your gut, 50% of your dopamine. So you really want to optimize that. And that's what Cogni does. So anyways, long story short, we feel, and we've got herbal parasite cleanse, we've got HCl breakthrough, like whatever digestive issue someone has, we feel we can solve it.
Amazing. So, love it.
And we're really, though, digestion is just one part of the body. I mean, we feel that it's the foundation in a lot of ways, right? People talk about food, but what you, again, digest, absorb, assimilate is really what it's all about. And that's critical. But beyond that, personally, I think optimizing my nervous system had a much bigger impact on the quality of my life. Wade asked me the other day, what's your favorite BiOptimizer product? I said Magnesium Breakthrough, not just because it has my initials, but but because it's really one of the things that just tangibly improved my life. I mean, I certainly spent the majority of my lifetime being trapped in fight, flight, freeze. I mean, I was getting bodybuilding, got to fighting. I'm an entrepreneur, just hard driving, which was great in my 20s. And then, getting my late 20s, early 30s, it doesn't work anymore. And I remember reading The Powerful Engagement and learning about, cycling from being engaged and recovery. And that was a big piece. But I constantly used to burn out. It was just part of my life. I would do a micro burnout every 3-4 months.
Nice.
And then take a week off and recover and then come back and then, repeat that process. And that worked to a certain degree. But the decline in my performance, my cognitive performance, by being in a stressed out mental state, it really hurt my performance. I would feel myself go from, vacation to I'm coming back, I'm 100%, and then start to decline. And then, 3-4 months later, I'm at 20% of my true potential. And I just realized I was just not recovering. I was not shifting my nervous system from sympathetic to parasympathetic. And there was 3 people that told me at the same time, and this is one of the things I believe in. When 3 people tell you about something in a short period of time, it's a message. So I had Dr. Mercola talk about magnesium to counter the effects of EMF, because one of the things he talks about is the EMFs open up our calcium channels, and magnesium and will help counterbalance the calcium in the body. And then I learned about it from Charles Poliquin. And he was the guy that talked about, hey, you want to use multiple magnesiums because they will impact different systems in the body, from the heart to blood sugar metabolism to performance to your brain. So I started doing that. And there was one more person that talked about it more from, just from a nervous system perspective. He's like, listen, take your dosage and increase it until you feel your nervous system shift. And both him and Poliquin talked about stacking that with EFAs, which is, I think, there's synergy between essential fatty acids and magnesium to rebuild the myelin sheet. That's
makes total sense.
Right? Yeah. There's a lot of synergy there. So I did that. And within, I think, 6 weeks, I literally felt like I went from frazzled. I couldn't drink coffee anymore. I'd drink a cup of coffee and instantly the stress hormones that I'd get from it I'd feel horrible. I felt like, my nervous system is just raw and fried and frail. But then to being a baseline calm and kind of in a Zen-like state as a baseline. And it was awesome. I'm like, okay, that's a big shift. And one of the things that I'd say after digestion for me personally, sleep, I think is the most important thing. I'm a huge sleep optimizer. I've invested about 45 grand in my sleep setup. And magnesium was one of the things that had the biggest impact ever on sleep. So like taking 3 magnesium breakthroughs an hour before bed is what I do. It just shifts me down and just gets me ready for a good restful sleep. And it shows up on the O-ring score.
Great. So let's, I didn't really want to talk about magnesium that much, but let's dig into that a little bit, because I think that when you talk about taking 3 magnesium an hour before bed, you're hitting on a couple of things for me. Number one, I hear so many people and so many of my clients are like, yeah, I take my magnesium right before bed and it doesn't do anything for me. And I'm like, well, how about you back it up and give it a chance to get into your system before bed? Taking your sleep supplements an hour before you're going to bed and using that time to actually wind down. In my mind, it's the chip that people are missing. They somehow think, I'm going to pop my whatever, my melatonin, my GABA, my theanine, my magnesium, and then I'm going to lie down and close my eyes and I'm going to fall asleep. And it's like, man, no, not really. That's not, it's speaking to the sleep hygiene piece and using those supplements to manage your way through the sleep hygiene, I think is probably a better strategy. But the other thing that you said is you take 3 magnesium breakthroughs, but that's because you've already amped up your levels.
Correct.
And so, because one of the interesting things in all of your literature and on your website that really kind of struck me, and I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm going to have to invest in like 10 bottles of this stuff to do the protocol as you've written it, which is to almost, you're encouraging people to go through a loading phase of these magnesiums so that at a cellular level, you now are optimized, because otherwise those 3 little magnesiums or 2 that you're taking before bed, it's like a drop in a bucket. Like it's just not going to do it. Right. So how did you guys kind of figure that out? This whole loading of magnesium and all the different magnesiums, which I get, whatever it's attached to will have affinity to different tissues and systems in the body, so that whether it's the brain or the heart or wherever else.
Yeah. So, and back to one of our core frameworks is biological optimization, aka BiOptimization. The goal is to get everything in the body to the right amounts and the right qualities of these molecules. And magnesium is no different. So with a lot of things, and magnesium is hard to absorb. First of all, it's almost non-existent in the food, which is a big issue.
Yeah.
And it's just hard to absorb through your intestinal tract. But it's one of the reasons we use sucrosomial, which most people haven't heard of. Sucrosomial, the reason I love it, I think it's probably the ultimate mag, is it absorbs more and it shows up in the literature and the research. So more will show up in your bloodstream, which is where you want it. And it doesn't pull water as much. So when we built the formula, our goal was maximum absorption, and cofactors and synergistic molecules, to me, is the most underrated aspect of formulating. And we know that with nootropics, and we've also proven it in the labs in Bosnia. Like, we just had a huge breakthrough where we're multiplying the effectiveness of our enzymes by literally 200 to 300% by adding cofactors.
Really?
So cofactors are huge. And a lot of magnesiums don't use cofactors. One of the cofactors we use is monoatomic elements, which most people haven't really heard of or used or explored that much. But these are the trace minerals, the platinum groups, the silvers, the golds. It's about 83 different trace minerals, and they are all cofactors to different degrees, but we tested with or without, and it definitely has an impact. So it's not just the 7 mags, which are awesome, but the cofactors make a big difference. And then you need to just saturate your body to an optimal dose, and you will feel it. It's a somatic experience. When you get to saturation, you will literally feel like, whoa, why am I so calm? I'm just relaxed, like just baseline. And some people, it takes a while. Depends on your genetics, right? You're an epigenetic expert. Some people have mutations that, it's harder for them to absorb certain things like B12 or whatever.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that you get enough, and doing blood tests is also valuable. You can test your mag levels or potassium or all these things. And we're big fans of using data. So, but somatically, you will feel just much calmer. And then that's when you're, okay, I'm at saturation. I can just pull back a bit and maintain.
Right. And so is there such a thing as too much?
Yeah,
something in literature. There was something in your literature. Oh, that was it. For the magnesium biglycinate, you talk about how too much magnesium glycinate can negatively impact stomach HCl.
Mm-hmm.
Did I read that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So with all things, again, most things, enzymes, barring enzymes, there is too much, right?
Yeah.
And the goal is to pull back, but the body is always excreting minerals.
Yes.
When you're sweating, it's a mineral soup, right?
Yeah.
Not just water. So I'm not too worried about excess minerals, because the body will expel them, whether through urine or sweat or excrements. There is a saturation point, and then there is having too much, but having too much magnesium isn't dangerous based on the research we've done on it. There's certain things that you really don't want toxic levels of, but magnesium seems pretty benign.
Well, and I would think that having a formula that combines all of these different forms, also it's less of a blunt. It's more spread out, right?
Correct.
So I wonder, because we see all these people like powering, just taking magnesium glycinate, tons and tons and tons and tons of glycinate, and none of these other forms. And just like cofactors, there's got to be a synergy to taking all the different forms. So also, you're not taking 1,000 milligrams of magnesium glycinate. You may be taking 1,000 milligrams, but you're kind of spreading it out in different areas in the body because of the different forms.
In our opinion, there is synergy. So again, just to get deeper into the chemistry of it, these magnesiums are bonded with different elements. And, these elements have their own impact in the body once they're separated from the mag. So that's part of the synergy, is definitely the elements that the magnesiums are bonded with. So you are correct.
And it's less likely to send you running to the bathroom.
Well, that's a big thing too in general. And we can talk a little bit about nootropics, because this is very true with nootropics. So nootropics are brain enhancing supplements, and there's a lot of different ways we can enhance the brain. The brain's definitely the most complex thing we have in the body. And most people,
it's a system.
It's a system. Great system. My favorite system. Now, with caffeine, which most people are familiar with, that is considered a nootropic. Same thing with nicotine is another example. But the problem is, if you just use caffeine, it's not that effective. First of all, your body adapts very quickly, right? You can, like a friend of mine, he went from being super sensitive to not being able to drink a half a cup of caffeinated coffee a day. He just, kind of get fried, to he just bought a kilo of caffeine of coffee the other day. And he's using 2, 3, 4 cups a day. So that's how fast the body adapts to caffeine, right? Your receptors downregulate.
Yeah. I don't get that.
Yeah. And I mean, it's still,
caffeine makes my teeth chatter. Like, it's a thing.
Right. I mean, again, there's different levels, depending if you're a slow caffeine metabolizer or not. But what's much more effective is using like a third of a cup of coffee, but potentiating it with a lot of other things, so we can stretch the length, we can add more things to it, and add more notes. The way we look at the brain is very much like a symphony. So there's 8 key molecules: right? Serotonin, GABA, acetylcholine, noradrenaline, adrenaline, cortisol, GABA. So I forget which one I forgot there, but you got eight key molecules that you want to optimize. And when you're deficient in one of those, then you're not really at your best. And most people are deficient, and they're not either producing in their guts, or they've got issues, whether it's physical or neurochemical.
They're not converting, right? Like the glutamic acid conversion to GABA, like you get people who are like, from a genetic perspective, they just can't, they're not producing the enzyme to convert. So they get stuck in this.
I agree. And genetics is a huge part of this. And again, people that are depressed or have other challenges, it's neurochemical challenges.
Yeah.
Now, one of the great tests that people can do for free is go to bravermantest.com. And it's a pretty extensive questionnaire that will assess it just does 4, but it'll assess your neurochemical dominance and deficiencies. And that's a very useful piece of information, because for me, for example, serotonin and GABA are my deficiencies, genetics. And if I boost those, my EQ goes up dramatically. Like, I boosted them for this call, and my connection with people, my ability to just bond with them and connect and want to socialize, because I'm a slight introvert by nature, it changes massively. I can go from like an introvert to extrovert to enjoying talking, connecting with people by just boosting my serotonin and GABA. And we can do that with nootropics.
Nice.
Now, some people are dopamine deficient. Now, I don't have that. I'm on the other side. That's why, I've got the wiring of an alcoholic, and I'm a super learner, and that's all dopamine, right? People that are learning machines or drive or have incredible levels of drive. They're just blessed with really strong dopamine systems, which shows up in my genetics. But for some people that don't have drive, struggle to learn, if you boost your dopamine levels, it's transformative. I mean, that's what Adderall does. I mean, it'll boost adrenaline, noradrenaline, and dopamine. So people are energized and they're learning more. But we can do that without using smart drugs and use nootropics. So yeah, I mean, we could talk about nootropics and neurochemistry all day.
We are going to talk about nootropics because this is, I mean, the way that you're stepping into that space, I think is so incredibly smart. But before we do that, or maybe we should do that. I can't decide. I feel like a kid in a candy store and I'm like, well, we could finish on the magnesium thing, but really I want to go to the nootropics, but let's stay a little longer with the magnesium and then move over to the nootropics. So on the magnesium side, okay, so we kind of get this whole thing. One of the pieces I'd love to explore a little bit with you, because in your book, which is fantastic, guys, if you don't have this book, first of all, you can get it for free if you place a nice size order, which is really not that hard because so many great products that BiOptimizers has, as you've just heard. I'm sitting here already writing out my next order, but it's called, and I'm holding it up, but if you're only listening to the podcast, it's the Biological Optimization Blueprint. And you know, what strikes me about this book is how generous you guys are, which speaks a little bit to your spirit of how badly you want to change the world, how badly you want to help people, in that you'll literally just send it to people. You know, I mean, yeah, you have to place a big enough order. I mean, at the end of the day, it costs a ton of time, brain space, money to create.
That's what I did during COVID. That was my COVID.
This is your COVID project?
Yeah,
this is amazing.
COVID.
Some people's COVID project was like building a tire around their belly. Your COVID project is this amazing thing. This is awesome. So anyway, so you've got this great book, and I've a little bit lost my train of thought, but the book is, it's like, and in the book, you talk about the 10 factors that contribute to aging and ultimately kill, you know, which is the flip side of it decreases your longevity. And longevity, as you know, is a bit of a passion of mine, and it becomes all of our passion, right? Like I met a really successful entrepreneur recently, and he made his big money in all these different spaces. And then he turned 40. And guess what his new obsession is? Longevity. Why? Because as soon as we start to feel that slide, as soon as Mother Nature taps us on the shoulder and go, you know, as fabulous and rich and successful as you are, you're going down the same road as everybody else. All of a sudden, people's brains go, whoa, wait a minute. No, not me. And so he too has turned his attention to longevity. So in the book, you talk about these 10 things that impact longevity, which are all amazing, and we can't get through all of them because we'll be here till Sunday. So we decided before the podcast, we would talk about mitochondria and what was the other one? And enzymatic depletion, right? And enzymatic depletion obviously feeds right into what we've been talking about, and then we would kind of weave it in with the magnesium story a little bit. So maybe we can explore that a little bit, and then we're going to go to nootropics because we have to.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's, you know, if you look at research on longevity and you know, so my grandfather, my father's father, he got hit by a car when he was 75. He was a really healthy, vibrant man, very active before that, got hit and run. And then, you know, I saw him go from a cane to a walker. And then my father built an apartment for him in our home. So he moved in, and I really saw like the last 5 years of his life, you know, literally praying for death and, you know, not being able to barely move, and just seeing that decline. I was a teenager. It really impacted me. You know, it's still, you know, a massive impact. So just looking at aging, and even in university, I used to study, you know, kind of the effects of weightlifting on the elderly, which, by the way, there's no age where your body will not respond to weightlifting, which is awesome. Yeah,
absolutely.
So yeah, you know, we when we think about longevity, that's one thing, but in the book, we also talk about health span, or what we call biospan, which is really it's about quality of life. And I've had that conversation with a lot of people. I'm like, would you want to live to 150? And if you ask someone that question, the majority of the time, if not like almost all the time, they say, no, like, I don't want to be decrepit for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Like, I don't want to, it's not something I want to experience. And I saw it with my grandfather. So I get it. So the question is, well, how do we not just live a long time, but how are we optimized? I want to be rocking when I'm 100. I want to be dancing, moving, going to the gym, having sex, enjoying life until the day I die. And that's not what most people experience. So that's what this chapter is about. It's called the 10 Aging Drivers. I can just list them out. We can dive into the 2 we talked about, but
sure.
And again, a lot of this stuff is from other researchers. The first one is genomic instability. Second one is telomere attrition. Third is epigenetic alteration, which you're an expert in. 4 is loss of proteostasis. 5 is deregulated nutrient sensing, which is one reason why fasting is so good. Mitochondrial functioning, which we're going to get into. 6, cellular senescence, aka zombie cells, is 7. 8, stem cell exhaustion. Number 8, which is, I think that's got a lot of promise. And I think injecting yourself with stem cells is a great potential answer to that. 9, altered intercellular communication, which we believe that minerals is a big part of that. So we can touch on that. And 10 is enzymatic depletion. So those 10 things, and we're all programmed to peak genetically in our late 20s and then procreate and then age, right? And then die. That's the wiring. That's in the code. But we can supersede that code, or that's what the power of epigenetics is. We can start turning things on that actually changes the code and changes our expression of these genetics and leads to a much better quality of life.
Absolutely. No, I love that. And to me, I think that going at it as far upstream as you possibly can is the way to go, right? And mitochondria really gets to that, because the telomere attrition is, it has to do with an enzyme called telomerase. It has to do with stress. It has to do with all of these inputs from the outside world. And the mitochondria at the same time, these are these powerhouses of the cell. If your mitochondria aren't working, it doesn't matter what you do. Like, you're going to run out of steam.
Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking to what people can do for their mitochondria, that is really going to help them to, and part of the mitochondrial maintenance, if you will, is encouraging mitochondrial biogenesis, like the creation of new mitochondria, but also getting rid of the busted ones, the broken ones, the ones that become dysfunctional.
Yeah, exactly.
So, go.
Just to touch on telomere real quick. I met a guy that is funded by Peter Thiel, and what they do is genetic engineering. It was funny. He pulled up his pant legs, and one of his calves was about 1.5 inches bigger than the other one. And he's like, "Yeah, we're building muscle building in a one shot. It changes the genetics forever, and his muscles are different." So, as we talk about telomeres, he said, in his opinion, that for telomere shortening to kill you, it'd be around 150 years old. He didn't think that it's really, it's a sign of aging, but it's not what's killing people. So just backing you up on that.
Okay. And I'll add one last thing to that, is this space of bioregulators, which is, part of the peptide world. And there is actually a bioregulator that you can access that will help to activate telomerase, that will help to lengthen telomeres. But to your point, just having long telomeres doesn't mean you're going to live longer, right? It's maybe part of the puzzle, but you've got to have all the other pieces plugged in. If you have long telomeres and your mitochondria aren't working, so you'll die with long telomeres. Nobody really knows the cause and effect fully. We don't fully understand it yet, but you've got to take care of that foundation of the house.
Yeah. So mitochondria are bacteria that have evolved with the body, and they're basically producing ATP, which is what our body uses for fuel. And what's interesting about bacteria, and again, mitochondria, very unique kind of bacteria, is that they are like humans. And we know this because we're doing nonstop experiments. And when I say they're like humans, they need food, and they respond to stress.
Yes.
and we can stress them and they will adapt. And that's the critical piece. And by the way, with the gut bacteria, for an example, like there's about a 48-hour curve where if you starve them, they just start dying. You know, you need to feed them otherwise. And the biofilm is a very dynamic thing. It can shorten quick if you don't feed it, or can build up quick if you feed it. So as far as the mitochondria, the question is, how do you stress them? And we're talking about positive stressors, which is one of the things in the book. And, you know, to really have our bodies become everything that it can, you need to stress it positively. So one of them is HIIT cardio, high intensity interval training. And it's pretty significant. There's about a 50% boost in mitochondria in 6 to 8 weeks. And all you need is 1 to 2 workouts a week. In fact, I just saw some newer research recently that if you overdo it, your mitochondria will actually go down.
I saw that study. That was so interesting, right? Too much of a good thing. But how long does the HIIT? Point, right? Yeah. How much? And that's what it is. It's hormetic stressor versus a negative stressor. But so what was the duration? What's the optimal duration? Is it enough to do like a 2-minute HIIT, or do you need to do a 20-minute HIIT? 4 minutes.
4 rounds.
So it's about a
4 burst.
Yeah. So and like it's about a workout?
8 minutes, 10 minutes, right? Like if, you know, for example, I like doing HIIT on an elliptical because there's no impact and you can really push the power. Same thing on an assault bike. Assault bikes are brutal.
And they're awful.
But
they're heinous, hellacious, kind of very effective workouts, to be clear.
But 4 bursts, and there's a cycling company that did the research and they built that. It's like a $3,500 bike. And the only thing it has, they've got the research to show that 4 bursts is what it takes to elicit that response. So anyways, you don't need to spend $3,500.
So 4 bursts of how long did you say?
Well, that's up to the person. I mean, listen, I was a trainer for a decade, and, you know, and I worked with a lot of people that like never worked out, and you got to approach that differently, which is, hey, come in and do 10 seconds, like a 10-second burst on an assault bike is a lot, right? Burst 10 seconds. And there's amazing research on the effects of like a 10-second burst on energy. So I use it throughout the day, you know, like I've got a rebounder, I'll do squats or push-ups. All you need is literally like 30 to 60 seconds. But 10 seconds even has a big impact. So 10 seconds, then rest for as long as you need, catch your breath, and go again. And you do that 4 bursts. So, you know, you got 3 rests and 4 bursts.
So you're talking about the Carol bike?
Yep.
Yeah. So that I have one of those. That was my COVID present to me.
There you go.
I was like, you know what? If I can't get to a gym, I'm going to get one of these bikes. And
do you like it? Has it made a difference?
Yeah, I love it, hate it. You know, she's a bitch, but I love it.
Yeah.
Like, it's incredible how long 10 seconds can feel.
Yeah.
Or the 20-second burst. Like it's 20 seconds is like for freaking ever when you're like trying
at 90%, 95%. It's a long time. That's when you realize a second's a long time.
Anyway, carry on.
But cold therapy, you know, most people have heard of cold therapy. It does make an impact on mitochondria. So that's another thing, you know, and again, same thing there, you know, you can do in the shower, start with what you're comfortable with. And then your body's going to adapt, right? With heat shock proteins, cold shock proteins. You know, I have friends that go to 220 degrees Fahrenheit in their sauna, but they built up to that, right? Most people at 150, they're like,
done. Yeah.
5 minutes, 10 minutes. But, you know, your body adapts, and that's part of continuing the journey of optimization, is continuing to increase the intensity of the stress. But yeah, cold therapy is another good one. You know, Capex is one of the supplements that I formulated with mitochondria in mind, because I wanted to not just break down ketogenic food into the building blocks, including the proteins and the fats, and then transport the proteins and the fats, but I wanted to activate the mitochondria with CoQ10, InnoSlim, and some other ingredients so that they utilize the fatty acids and produce more ATP, more energy. So Capex is really cool because you can take 4 to 5 capsules in the morning and it'll produce 15 to 20% more energy for 6 to 10 hours, depending on the person, with no adrenal activation. This is not activating noradrenaline or adrenaline. This is just ATP, which is awesome.
So this is amazing to me. So do you have to be on a ketogenic diet to use Capex? Because I right now have a client who we just did his cortisol curve, and he's what you might call a flatliner. He doesn't have a cortisol curve. So I'm sitting here trying to figure out how do I give this, while coaching him to maybe think about changing his lifestyle. How do I get him? How do I bridge that gap right now? And so I'm wondering, when I saw that about Capex, I was like, whoa, maybe this would be, because his adrenals have kind of thrown in the towel at this point. They're like, you know what, we're out. we're not playing.
Right.
Here.
So he needs to recover. Yeah, Capex could be great for him for sure.
Yeah. Just to bridge. Okay, cool. Interesting. Carry on. Sorry.
Yeah. So, those are some of the main things for mitochondria, but just, again, hormetic stresses, positive stressors, whatever you want to call them, you need to incorporate that in your life. Eat good food, eat great food, get sunlight. It's just the basic things we've heard forever, but now we understand. And to me, it helps, right? Like the more I understand why something does what it does, the more bought in I am, right?
Yeah,
the more I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to take the effort, the time.
And so where does magnesium fit in?
Well, I think magnesium works a lot. So we believe that the elements, the minerals, including the trace minerals, are key parts of cellular signaling.
Right.
And, we know that electrolytes are critical for the body, right? I mean, the body's electrical, it's chemical, it's gaseous, it's all these things. So you need to, really optimize your body's electricity, which leads us to the next point, enzymes. Enzymes to me are these electrical catalysts that convert things and convert things, break things down, catalyze things. And that's how everything's happening in the body nonstop on millions and millions of levels, is your body's just breaking things down and building things and breaking down proteins into amino acids and then assembling amino acids into peptides, and the peptides go and do their magic, which I know you're a fan of peptides, so am I. So it's just this nonstop conversion, enzymatic conversions, right? Enzymes are basically doing almost everything in the body, to say 25,000 different functions from thinking to blinking. And, most people don't realize that if you're eating cooked food, if you have a stressful lifestyle, drugs, all of these things will deplete your enzymatic reserves. And you see it with alcoholics, right? You see it in the liver, right? The body will respond and start increasing liver enzymes to try to break down the alcohol as a defense mechanism. And then eventually just can't keep up, and then the body starts breaking down. So yeah, taking enzymes, I think, are a really big thing for longevity. There's some great research on supercentenarians.
Yeah.
And they believe that what's killing them, and it's an interesting theory, is protein agglomeration in the cells, and the cells stop working. If cells stop working, then, it's kind of like a building. If enough bricks fall apart in a wall, the wall will fall apart. If enough walls fall apart, the building falls.
Right.
So I think that looking at enzymes from that perspective, in their capability of cleaning a house, back to fasting, I think to get the benefits of enzymes for longevity is primarily on an empty stomach. You want the proteolytic enzymes going and cleaning house in your bloodstream on a cellular level. And I think it has a really big impact on aging and longevity. So
yeah,
that's
love it. Okay. Amazing. All right. Now, our final topic, yes. Which is your newest kind of venture.
Yeah.
Ooh, what does that say? I couldn't see because of the reflection.
Yeah, this is Xamarin Juice.
Xamarin Juice. Okay, nootropics.
Nootropics, yes.
And nootropics in a way, because here's my, and I was saying this to you earlier, here's my pet peeve about nootropics. I think they're the best. And I think that there is, if there was ever an area where there is not a one size fits all, It's in nootropics. And it goes back to what you were talking about earlier. It's about all those neurotransmitters in the brain. Where are your strengths and weaknesses? So now you are now launching a whole new company or another branch of your company, which looks to helping people to understand where their strengths and weaknesses are, for lack of a better term. And now and I don't know how you're doing this because I haven't seen the website yet. You're somehow helping them to put together a nootropic stack that helps them to optimize, which I love the whole idea of this. So tell me about it.
Yeah, I'll give you a super quick, just my background in terms of my brain. So born with alcoholic wiring, became an alcoholic at 12, and from the age of like 28 to 32, really went off the rails with drugs and alcohol and got sober. I've been sober for 12 years, turned 44. And when I got sober, I just realized, okay, my brain is damaged for sure. It's not, started to forget things. But like at 35, it's forgetting people's names, forgetting keys. I freaked out too because my grandmother had dementia. Long story short, started researching the brain. I'm like, okay, can we fix this? Can we optimize this? Started doing lion's mane. That was amazing. That was a game changer for memory within 30 days of doing like 2-3 grams. Started doing EFAs. That really helped. Started doing photobiomodulation with the V-Light. That helped. And it was stacking. I was feeling things compound. And then 6 years ago, I started doing neurofeedback. That was a game changer. I've spent over 6 figures on neurofeedback. I've got a medical grade system at home. Spent about 7 weeks of my life doing it. It's a game changer. I can't don't want to get too lost in that, but cannot recommend neurofeedback enough. It's awesome. And then started kind of in conjunction playing with nootropics and trying basically every smart drug that's out there, every different raw nootropic ingredient. And there was a lot of stuff that worked. Some stuff worked. And then the next day I felt lower than I normally would, which I really didn't like. Like things like modafinil. I'd get a boost that day, but the day after I felt like I was paying the price. I don't want to pay the price, right?
Well, and it's like a depletion, right? Like I've used like there was one nootropic stack I once used and I would do really well for about 4 hours. And then at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I would turn into the nastiest piece of work you've ever, like I scared me. And it was, and the best I could come up with is it was putting my brain into overdrive in a certain way, but it was depleting certain pieces that I needed and leaving me like not in a good place on the other side.
Okay. So there's 2 main frameworks. If we were to archetype people in terms of their brain, it's not just the neurotransmitters, the 8, it's also people's nervous system. Mm-hmm. And people fall on one side of the coin or the other. So some people are like naturally parasympathetic. So they're calm people and they typically can handle a strong amount of stimulation, right? If we were to put them on an arousal chart, they're on the lower side. Even if we push them up, they're still in that optimal arousal zone. Now, some people are naturally intense and wired and they're sympathetic in nature. If you ramp their nervous system up too much, which you can do with nootropics, then they become beasts and savages and scare people. So that's one of the key things we look at. So it's not, so the optimal amount of stimulation, and stimulation, again, we're activating noradrenaline, adrenaline, cortisol in the right amounts at the right time of day. And that's a big part of Noots is, okay, let's time it with my circadian rhythm. I crash, let's just say, at 1 p.m. in afternoon. My energy drops. So you can counter that. Take your Noots like at 12. If you got energy in the morning, ride that wave and then take your Noots, and then you're going to have an awesome afternoon and work, till 5, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock if you need to or want to, and you'll have an optimized day. So there's a learning curve too on dosing and stacking and timing.
Nice.
These are all things we teach people. We create a 40-page book that comes with the Noots all about these concepts. And, optimizing neurochemistry is a game changer. You can not only get optimized, but you can create new states. you can create new high performance states, which is really the game that I've been focusing on for about 4 years. One of my close friends, Todd Herman, wrote an incredible book called The Alter Ego Effect. And in that book, he talks about creating alter egos to activate high performance states. He works with a lot of pro athletes. And if you look at some of the top celebrities and singers and performers and dancers, they do this. Now, one of the other ways we can hack neurochemistry is with nootropics. I mean, if you think about it, people use alcohol and drugs to do that, right? Now, some of these states are far from high performance, which is a whole other point. But even going to the bar, right? Why are people drinking at the bar? Because it boosts their GABA and reduces inhibition, and they're more social. Yeah. So really what they're trying to do is improve their extroversion, right? They want to be more extroverted so that they can connect with people. Now, we can do that with Noots. So back to your point, and when we designed, and again, the genius behind him, we call Mr. Noots. He's the greatest formulator we've ever met. He's the greatest extractor we've ever met. So he's a wizard. He's been doing chemistry for over 50 years. He uses up to 11 different extractions sometimes to pull things out and get rid of all the things you don't in a plant. And we've never met anyone like him. And he's a wizard when it comes to neurochemistry and stacking things and potentiating things. So him and I have been working together to create 9 different blends. And the blends are all very unique and they do very specific things. Now, some people, again, will love the high stem, high drive increasing stacks. And all of these we can mod. So everybody fills out a questionnaire, tell us, and we look at it, and then we mod the stem, we mod, every part of it for every single person. We cap individually. So every cap is handmade based on your intake form, based on the mods to the base formula.
Wow.
And we mod every month. So you give us feedback. You're like, okay, power solution was too much, or this wasn't enough. Can you boost this? We do that every month until it becomes exactly what you want. And some people just love like 3 or 4 stacks, like Nectar X. Most people that's their jam. And then you start stacking things. And this is where it gets fun. Every day you wake up and you're like, okay, what's the stack today? I'm going to stack Nectar X with Upbeat or with Brain Flow. And I'm going to, where am I going to time things? I'm going to start with Upbeat, do Nectar X later. So it's a learning curve, but it's a lot of fun. And if people love to optimize and experiment and pay attention, and it comes with an app. So we have a 30-day guided journey that is built into the app. It's also built in the book. And you give us feedback and we tell you kind of what to do on a daily basis to try to optimize your journey as fast as possible. And yeah, most people within 4 to 6 weeks are achieving states that like they love it. It's what they always wanted. It's like most people are at about 80%. Like if you're an optimized person, they're like, okay, I'm at 80, 85. On a good day, I'm at 90. Now you're at 95 to 100 almost every day. So wow. It makes a big difference, especially if you're using your brain for work. If you're an entrepreneur, you're a high performer, it's a no-brainer, no pun intended. If if you're working at Tim Hortons making donuts, probably not a big ROI, but
well, maybe it'll get you out of the dead-end job, right?
Maybe it'll get you to quit Tim Hortons. Exactly.
Maybe it'll get you to quit Tim Hortons and actually just, unless that's your jam, unless that's really what you want to do, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I enjoy a good Tim Hortons once in a while.
I'm not a Tim Hortons fan. No, not my thing. Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm super stoked. I can't wait to get my hands on this stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm signing up.
And one last comment too, because it's all hand capped. We're about to pull out the velvet rope, as in limit the orders and then do releases. So like at this moment in time, we have 75 more spots. We haven't announced we're doing this, but this is what we're going to have to do as we build up our team. And then we're going to be slowly releasing more spots. But yeah, the response has been amazing. And the subscription retention has just been mind blowing because
I can imagine
people just want to stay optimized.
Well, and I think it really speaks to this whole problem that we see, certainly that I see in the people that I work with and the people in my community, is that it like nootropics for a lot of people is throwing darts at a dartboard in the dark, and
Blizzard.
In a blizzard in the dark, and sometimes you hit it. I mean, people will eventually sometimes find what they need, but quite often they're just flailing, and it's hard to stick with enough things in an intentional way to figure out your way through finding the right solution, right? So it sounds like here you're giving people guidance and giving them a starting point so that they can go from there and they're progressing as opposed to spinning their wheels. So that's really exciting. There's one thing we forgot to talk about on the Magnesium Breakthrough, and then we're going to wrap it up because we're going long here. I'm sure you've got other things to do. Mm-hmm. But we did talk about this ahead of time, and I wanted to address it because you had a really good answer. Mm-hmm. People are very concerned about flow agents, excipients, and not so much about when you're taking one supplement, but cumulatively over time. I've got my mitt full of supplements first thing in the morning. And people worry about the buildup of those excipients, and you had a great answer. So maybe we could talk briefly about that. I have a feeling it's not an issue with the nootropics because you're hand capping, so you're not worrying about optimizing a machinery. But let's just touch quickly on the Magnesium Breakthrough solution that you have, and then we'll wind it down.
Yeah. Well, Wade and I are fanatical about just about everything. I mean, we just are, including excipients. So, the original. Again, we work with 5 different formulators. One of them was suggesting, hey, let's use magnesium stearate. I said no. And what we use something called New Flow, and it's a silica-based excipient. So, silica is awesome. It's great for collagen and skin. It's a really powerful. So yeah, even also with Protein Breakthrough, we did not want to use any gums as an example. No guar, no xanthan gum. So we've been, one of the harder things was to figure out how can we emulsify all of these food-like ingredients without using gums, and we did it. So, we're always willing to go the extra mile on the testing and the research and the ingredients and just going all in to make the best possible product, including excipients, gums, you name it, extractions. That's just how we roll.
Leave no stone unturned. I love it. Okay, so if people want to, so for all of the supplements we talked about mostly in the podcast, that's bioptimizers.com. And you can also, guys, you can use longevity 10 to get 10% off your order. And on the nootropic side, what's the website there? And
it's nootopia.com, Nootopia. So Nootopia.com. And it's awesome. There's a lot of information when you come on the site. You'll be able to watch like a 2-hour and 44-minute webinar that's there. And again, we give away the 40-page book. So people, one of the things we're obsessed with too is just educating people.
Yeah.
Not just about our supplements and our products, but really how to become optimized. So the book, again, we created the 40-page brain book, which is different. We got the 84-day course, which Wade created. We got cookbooks coming out. Like we just want to help people, and education, information is a big part of that.
I love it. So nootopia.com, and hopefully, I don't know that's for sure yet, but probably longevity 10 will work there as well. But that'll be in the introduction. So either I'm contradicting myself now, or there'll be something a bit different in the introduction. So anything else people should know? Can they reach out to you?
I think it was a lot. I think
we covered a lot of ground.
We covered more topics than I ever have in any podcast I've ever done. So that's awesome.
Okay, great. Well, my goal today was, quite apart from having a great discussion with you, was not to repeat on all the other podcasts that you've done. You've done amazing stuff. So
I love it.
Keep it fresh, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you so much for your time and your presence here today, and for sharing all that you did.
Yeah, you're a great interviewer, and I love what you're doing. So keep spreading the message and helping people. Something I think about a lot is how virality of knowledge and wisdom happen. And, you've got your mentors, I've had my mentors, and they've impacted hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. And now we're doing the same. And then these people are doing the same. And eventually the whole planet will be living biological optimization one way or another, whether they're using our products or not. But that's our mission, is to keep spreading that and doing our part, and you're doing your part. And, once people taste it, once people taste what being optimized feels like, whether their body or their brain, it's one of the most powerful things sensations, experiences anyone can have. And you just want more, like Wade and I have been on this journey, and we're still just like, okay, what's the next level? So
it's amazing. I love it. It's a gift, and it's the greatest gift you can give yourself, and you guys are just making it that much easier for people to tap into it. So thank you for all that you do and all that you share. And hopefully we get to talk again sometime.
Yeah, you're awesome. Thanks, Nathalie.
Thank you. You're the best.